When you hear the phrase climate change, chances are this comes to mind. A poor polar bear whose homeland is melting away. And chances are, you may be thinking, oh no, not again. But wait!
Hi, I'm Edward Choy.
And I'm his wife, Jo Tan.
We think of ourselves as green warriors, and we're here today to talk about climate change.
Specifically, we want to talk about why we care about climate change, but we don't do anything about it.
Yeah, Joe, it's like how you don't have a driving license because you think cars are bad for the environment, but you take taxis a lot more than you should.
Oh, right. It's like how you're obsessed with turning off all the lights in the house, but the moment it gets a bit warm in the afternoon, you don't hesitate to turn on the air conditioner.
So why is this the case? Well, it's because our brains work in a way that often leads us to make mistakes in decision-making. And this is called cognitive bias. And I've been reading about it.
Huh?
Okay, so for example, we form generalities. And we favor the immediate or relatable thing in front of us. Or we think we know what people are thinking, and we are drawn to details that confirm our own beliefs. Basically, it means that our brains can make mistakes, and this affects our decision-making. It's called cognitive bias, and this could be the reason why we're not doing anything about climate change.
Right.
Okay, tell you what. Why don't I tell you more about this, and then we see whether we can transform our climate inaction into action.
So let me get this right. Our brains are trying to process all the information that's coming at us, but because of cognitive bias, there might be an error in the calculation, so 2 + 2 = 5, meaning we might make wrong decisions, which is why we don't act on what we know about climate change?
Yep.
Ah.
And we're not alone. According to a nationwide survey, the OCBC Climate Index, which was launched by OCBC Bank and its partners, Singaporeans show a high level of awareness on climate change issues, but lower levels of adoption and advocacy.
So simply put, we know, but we do not act or speak up.
We know single-use plastics are bad.
We know we should be taking mass transport more.
We know we should be mindful about our carbon footprint by reducing energy use.
But we still take less than green actions. So how can we start to reconcile our knowledge and our behavior?
Hey, let's switch off the lights.
Yeah, sorry.
Here in Singapore, the impact of climate change can be felt in the growing frequency of dry spells, but also intense rainfall. And look at how much hotter Singapore has become in the past decade. According to weather scientists, much of this change is attributable to climate change.
Climate change is already threatening our planet and our very existence today. But we seem to think it is a problem for the future. There aren't enough of us who are turning our knowledge into action. And it seems like everybody is waiting for everybody else to do something first.
To try and understand the psychological reasons behind our climate change inaction, we got the help of Dr. Samuel Cheng. He's an applied social psychologist whose research focuses on human behavior across a range of areas, including sustainability.
So Sam, when the OCBC Climate Index came out, I think that both Ed and I were very surprised because we thought that we were exemplary environmentalists.
What was interesting about the results, right, was that it showed us that being aware of sustainability or climate change didn't necessarily lead to action by the people. So this happens far more often than we would actually imagine. So for instance, we would have had to study, right, as students, but then we actually spend our time doing other things, for example, playing football or going out with friends. It shows that being aware of an issue like climate change or sustainability isn't enough. We got to go beyond educating. We got to do much more in order to create the impact that we need today.
Right.
Why is it that we don't take action on something that we know about?
So it could be explained with a whole host of reasons, but chief among them is actually the cognitive biases that we have. And cognitive biases are part of our human nature. So it helps us to actually make decisions quickly on an everyday basis. So for example, when we see two similar products with the same price, the one that is marked down more heavily will be viewed as a better value buy. However, if we use this sort of decision-making in other parts of our life or in all parts of our life, then we would tend or veer towards making some not-so-good decisions.
Right. So, for example, if I'm at the supermarket and I just want to get a single apple, but then I grab one of those huge plastic bags to store my single apple in, and I do that without thinking, that's also a form of cognitive bias, right?
Yes, that's right. So there will be times in which we will then realize our actions aren't really in line with our beliefs or our attitudes. And that's when you have this nagging feeling at the back of your head, right? And you feel uneasy with the decision that you have made.
I see, I see. So, what's the name for that?
This phenomenon is actually called cognitive dissonance.
Right.
According to Samuel, cognitive dissonance is very common. When it comes to mitigating climate change, even those who are walking the talk can drop the ball.
We caught up with Ocean Purpose Project at their beach cleanup here at Pasir Ris Beach. They are a social enterprise looking to solve the ocean plastic crisis. So this looks like a serious group of environmentally conscious people. Can you please tell us about the Ocean Purpose Project?
Ocean Purpose Project is a social enterprise proudly based here in Pasir Ris. We focus on ocean conservation as well as the prevention of ocean pollution. Well, we get a wide range of people and they're like, I want to do my part for the oceans. We're not just doing a beach cleanup, we're also converting the ocean plastics into hydrogen.
Wow.
We're also developing a new form of bioplastic made out of seaweed.
Community projects like these, are they very popular now?
Definitely, ever since COVID restrictions have eased, we're starting to see a lot more people get involved, to participate, to volunteer with us. In fact, this is part of a big project called Project White Sands, where our KPI is to involve 140,000 people who live, work and play in this town to get involved. We're a strong believer that every single person has their part to play for our oceans.
Mathilda wasn't kidding about the strong believers in the group.
So, Nisa, do you consider yourself a pro-environment person?
Yes, definitely. So I have two young kids, and from a young age, we've introduced them to recycling sort of thinking.
I will organize trips like that, with my kids. So we'll come by to the nearest beach, and then we'll just bring our own trash bag and thongs and pick up.
Do you guys care about the environment?
Yes, we do. We collect hooks because one time we saw an otter had a hook stuck in his paw.
Tell me a bit about how many hooks are in here.
1,000 and something.
After the beach had been cleaned up, we sat down for a chat with our new friends.
It's great to see all of you here at Pasir Ris Beach on Saturday morning. So maybe you can share what motivated you to participate in this beach cleanup.
I think as citizens and individuals, we are all part of the environment. So we need to do our part also to help with the cleanup.
So seeing all this waste that ends up on our beach, right?
Yes.
Have you made any changes in your personal life to ensure that we stop the source of all this pollution?
One of the major issues I'm right now facing is whenever I get to a retailer, a cashier, they'll say, do you want a bag? I say, why are you asking me this? I don't want a bag. I don't need it.
I try to minimize the waste that I use, like the cups, the papers. I try to replace things in my kitchen that can save the environment.
As we got to know our new eco-conscious friends better, we doubted if they ever experienced the cognitive dissonance Samuel described, where what they believe and what they do may be in conflict. But as we found out...
So I'd like to ask, how did you get here today? Because Pasir Ris Beach is quite out of the way.
Cab. I could have sacrificed using cab, but I was lazy to get up.
I drove.
You drove here
I'm
today.
guilty, but I offered to bring a few of my friends so that I can, combine a carpool and try to reduce the carbon footprint, but a few of them couldn't make it.
We are a couple, so we shared a cab here. So again, it's not single-use transport, it's double-use.
I took public transport.
Public transport, wow. So he woke up.
Out of all of us, one public transport.
After our experience at the beach, Ed and I caught up with Samuel again.
So, as we saw on the beach, most, if not all of us, experience this dissonance between our actions and our beliefs, right?
Yes, in fact, if we look at how we got there that morning, all except one actually drove or took a ride share there. Right? So, and what we did after that was to try to, explain why we actually did that instead of taking public transport.
But do you find that most of the time that's how people deal with cognitive dissonance, by almost modifying their beliefs so that they feel better?
Yes, that's always easiest for people to do so. So when your actions don't match your belief, this will cause an uneasiness from the dissonance. So what you can do is either change your beliefs to match your actions or to change your actions to match your belief. So either way, this dissonance goes away.
Right.
The trick is to use this uneasiness that we feel from this dissonance to take it as a cue to do the right action and not just to soothe it by changing our beliefs. But when we realign our beliefs instead, that's when other cognitive biases also come in.
Samuel then gave us many examples of cognitive biases that could creep up on even the best of us. Safe to say, we had never felt such environmental guilt. So the cognitive biases we develop seem to be the villain when it comes to our climate inaction.
And Samuel says there are so many types of biases, so I wonder which ones are the main culprits.
Let's find out. Then we can identify these biases and make greener decisions. Yeah. Okay.
What are you doing?
Calling a taxi?
But the MRT station is just there. Shouldn't we take the train?
No, I mean, it's a lot of stops and we're dressed quite nicely, so... I see where you're going with this.
Come on. MRT. For Mother Earth.
So we took a break from trying to find out why so many people know about climate change but don't do anything about it.
And during that break, we ended up taking plastic bags instead of bringing our own reusable ones.
And accepting plastic straws when we could drink directly from the cup.
Anyway, we found out that how people deal with that discomfort when there's a difference between their behavior and their green beliefs is by developing cognitive biases.
Yeah, it's like when some of our friends say, "Oh, I'm sure technology will catch up and save us from climate change."
Or, "I'm more worried about how our children are doing during their exams." The thing is that when the effects of climate change seem quite far away, it's almost easier for us to dismiss them.
Hey, I might know someone who can address this issue.
Oh.
You help me bring all this back, okay? Don't forget to put the milk in the fridge, yeah? All right, yeah, love you, bye. It's easy for us to imagine what we would do tomorrow or the day after or even next week. But when we are asked to imagine 50 years from now, suddenly the picture is a lot less clear. Helping me get more clarity is Dr. Denise Dillon, a researcher in applied psychology.
So we have errors in our perceptions and judgments about things, and that can be caused by or lead to cognitive biases. And some of those can be explained by construal level theory, which explains the psychological dimensions through which we construe the world or understand the world, with self as a reference point. So me, here, and now. And the idea is that things that are further away and far away can seem abstract, difficult to understand. Things that are close to us can be conceived of as more concrete and so easier to understand.
Could you give us an example of this?
Sure. Let's use polar bears as an example. They live far away in Arctic regions of the world, and that's a long way away from us here now in the tropics. So it's difficult for us to understand how our green actions here could possibly influence something so far away from us.
So things that are far feel abstract, but things that are near feel a lot more concrete.
Precisely.
To illustrate how people react differently to distant, abstract, and near concrete consequences, we did an experiment. First, we marked the floor on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being most important and 1 not at all important. Then, we invited 13 persons aged 18 to 89 to join us. I will be giving these participants certain scenarios to rank by importance, and we'll see how they respond. So this is scenario 1, your first set of questions. It is important to me that climate change may make Singapore unlivable for unborn generations. Remember, folks, 10 is most important to you, 1 is least important to you. Question 2. It is important to me that climate change may lead to the extinction of Arctic animals like polar bears. Question 3. It is important to me that climate change may harm people living in African countries more severely. Question number 4. It is important to me that climate change may increase the occurrence of extreme weather like blizzards and droughts. Clearly, many of our participants were quite keen environmentalists. But why did the others answer the way they did? So, Alvin, just now the question on African countries, it was less important to you about the issues over there. Could you share with us why that was the case?
First thing, maybe because Africa is so far away from us, and moreover, when we are brought up from young to now, we are not educated to be aware of this climate change.
Okay. Africa is far away from us, so that's that abstract concept. So in a psychological distance sense, it's far away.
So it does matter that when you're young, that these ideas are inculcated, right?
It's that personal experience that makes the difference. And as Alvin has said, he didn't have that experience early on, so didn't think it was important.
Yes, correct.
So Jacob, polar bears, why are they less important to you?
I guess it's because as a student now, there are many other pressing matters. It is on my mind. Polar bears not really occupying much space in my head.
It's not important to you because it's far away from other things. That could be a hypothetical psychological distance, that it doesn't seem concrete to what you're doing now with your studies.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so Tammy, blizzards and droughts, not very high on your list of important things.
I mean, in Singapore, we don't experience very drastic weather change here. It's either sunshine or rain. So I find that it's not going to affect us that much.
Yeah, not much extreme weather here, right, Dr. Denise?
That's correct. So personal experience is the more concrete, and Tammy's referring to something that's hypothetical. Droughts don't happen here.
Definitely not blizzards.
Yeah, definitely not.
It was clear that at least some of our participants felt the psychological distance that Denise had explained. How should we deal with this?
Well, it's reframing the narrative, so making it clear that climate change is here, now, and not far away and not in the future.
Based on that, I made some tweaks to the scenarios. Let's try this again. All right, folks, so second set of questions. Your first question. It is important to me that climate change may make Singapore unlivable in 20 years. Once again, 10 most important to you, 1 least important to you. right, folks, question number 2. It is important to me that climate change may lead to the extinction of salmon. Question number 3. It is important to me that climate change may harm people living in Southeast Asian cities severely. Question number 4. It is important to me that climate change may increase the occurrence of flooding and extremely hot days in Singapore. Simply reframing the questions brought about a distinct change. So Alvin, we're speaking to you again because second set of questions, you found that they were more important to you. So could you tell us why that's the case?
Because we are in Singapore, it affects us more.
They're more immediate to you.
Yeah, correct.
So Jacob, you were answering more important compared to the first set. Could you tell us why?
Mainly because the second set of questions deal more with Singapore, which is home to me. I kind of pictured all the different flooding events that have happened recently, dry spells, really hot.
We've had some references here of a spatial distance, so Singapore closer to self, and also the temporal distance, things that have happened in recent memory. So that is definitely the personalised experience that make things more concrete.
So that was interesting. When we tweaked the questions, their responses changed.
Yes, and that's why we need to reframe the narrative about climate change. So if we present it in an abstract way, the world's going to end because of climate change, people are unlikely to respond to that. If we bring it back to something concrete, things are going to happen to me soon, then it's more likely that people will respond in a positive way.
That does make us all sound terribly selfish.
Yes, unfortunately. But if you think about it, all of our experience is self-centred. And so unless we have a clear present danger threatening us, our default will be to think everything's okay.
So it means that reframing the narrative is how we deal with this.
Correct.
Well, Ed may have abandoned me with the groceries and run off to reframe the narrative, but I was no slouch.
Well, the milk is in the fridge, and I'm here to meet somebody who has been doing just that, reframing the narrative.
This is Wu Qiyun, a social media influencer. Known as the Weird and Wild online, Qiyun brings up climate change issues on her social media channels using cute infographics and has since garnered more than 13,000 followers on Instagram.
Okay, so could you tell me about your journey and why you started this process in the first place?
I've always been a conservationist or into conservation growing up, but I was only very public with my environmentalism in 2018 when I was an undergrad in environmental studies at NUS. It really started because a friend came up to me and asked me, where can I know how to recycle and what to recycle? And that's when I went on the internet and realized, okay, this information is not as easy to find as I thought it was. So someone suggested, why don't you consolidate some of these things? And I thought, yeah, I mean, that seems like a great idea because if I, as an environmentalist, couldn't find it, what more another interested person? And when I was thinking about that, I thought, why not do it in a new way? So using visuals, illustrations, and then putting it on Instagram. And that's how the Weird and Wild started.
So could you tell me more about this response that the public has had to your content?
I think the response has been really good in the last 2 years. Perhaps it's due to the pandemic, but I like to attribute that to increased awareness about climate change, or at least interest. So I've had a lot of responses where, it's just people liking, sharing, but even contributing. So sometimes people will ask, can you talk about this issue? Or can I tell you more about something that I just learned? So from that, I feel like I've built an online community on Instagram of sorts.
I think that's incredible. So what do you think this says about the need to reframe the narrative when it comes to something like climate change?
Yeah, I like to think that climate change is complex, but there's no need to oversimplify that content. And the main aim aim of the page is really to make complex things more interesting, more visual, more aesthetically pleasing. And the fact that people take to that really goes to show that we don't need the content that goes 3 things to save the world, you know. We just need complex things told better. So hopefully, you know, with more people understanding this, they will gain a better appreciation of how interconnected everything is and maybe take action in a more informed way. Yeah, that's great.
Hey, so how was your meeting with June?
Oh, it went well. She gave me a crash course on design, so I'm a graphic designer now. Anyway, what really stuck out to me was how she was able to reframe issues to really make an impact because of how unique it was. And you know, she has so many followers, more than you and I combined, ×3. Wow.
Which goes to show just how powerful reframing the narrative can be. Like, I now know how to construe abstract climate change consequences to feel more immediate.
So you had fun lah? Yeah. Good. Anyway, for the next cognitive bias, I think it's my turn to structure and experiment.
What do you have in mind?
I don't know. I think I need to have a coffee and think about it. Okay, see you.
Cool. She didn't ask me, so I'm gonna stand here and listen to nature.
We've seen how reframing the narrative around things like climate change helps us to view it differently because we transform our perspectives. But what if the long-term effects of climate change just seem so far removed from our personal lives, like rising sea levels, and we have more immediate concerns like paying less for coffee? 1 latte, please. Small one. Yep. The next cognitive bias is all about how people seem to prioritize short-term benefits over long-term gains. And here's a classic example.
If I gave you a choice between taking $100 now or $120 if you waited a week, which would you pick? If you're like most people, you would have chosen $100. Because we'd rather just take the cash now than wait a week for a little more money. I invited Samuel for coffee to find out more about this phenomenon.
What we are discussing here is actually hyperbolic discounting. It is a cognitive bias where people have the tendency of prioritizing and choosing instant rewards and satisfaction over longer-term rewards. So in terms of climate change, it may take years, if not decades, for us to really see how we have contributed towards it. So in our everyday behaviors and decisions that we make, we tend to prioritize the immediate rewards that we can see, rather than to think about how our actions could actually save the world.
To see hyperbolic discounting play out in the context of fighting climate change, we did an experiment at the cafe. In the first round, we gave participating customers a choice of 2 types of coffee. Coffee A has a carbon footprint of 0.5 kilograms and costs $4, while coffee B's carbon footprint is 0.1 kilograms but costs $6. Let's see which coffee our customers will select.
If I were to show you these 2 coffees, which one do you think you'd be more inclined to go for?
The economical value will be more important, so I'll choose the cheaper option.
Of course, I will pick the $4 cup because it's cheaper. I save $2. So yes, I'm definitely going with A.
I'll probably just go for this one.
Right. Can I ask you why not the other cup?
I'll just go for convenience and price. So it's not really about like the carbon footprint. Yeah.
I think I'll go for the $4 per cup.
Oh, but why? Why not this one?
Because it's $6 is above my usual budget for coffee. Yeah.
I see. But this one has a lower carbon footprint. It has almost a fifth of the other one.
I think when it comes to carbon footprint, I don't know what that means, you know.
Right.
Yeah, so I can't really relate that to a cup of coffee.
Every person we spoke to chose the cheaper coffee with the higher carbon footprint.
So Sam, were you surprised at the results when most people chose the cheaper cup of coffee as opposed to the more expensive one with the lower carbon footprint?
Absolutely not, because that's hyperbolic discounting in action. So we saw that people prioritize saving $2 over choosing a cup of coffee that was more expensive but would have actually an impact in terms of climate change.
So how can businesses then encourage their consumers to take more green actions instead of simply focusing on savings?
So what they can do is to give some of the rewards now, okay, to encourage consumers to actually make decisions that would have longer-term benefits.
Right, and these small rewards, you give it to them now, like little free gifts or things like that.
Yes, that's right. This is called reward bundling, and we see this being done quite often by marketeers.
So that's what we did. We added a reward to bundle with Coffee B to see if more people would be willing to pay for the more environmentally friendly option.
So this is a $4 cup of coffee, but it has a higher carbon footprint. This one is $6, but it has a lower carbon footprint. And if you get 5 of these coffees, you get a free mug. So which one do you think you would normally go for?
I'll go with the $6 per cup.
How come?
The company that I work for, we are very much into carbon reduction. We are all working towards reducing carbon footprint. Especially it comes with a free mug as well. I think I will go for that.
Right. Then you'll bring a mug to work every day and show your boss, right? Hey,
yes, that's correct.
Definitely the $6.
Oh, how come?
Because, I mean, environmental issue is quite critical right now. And I feel like $2 difference, if they can make a change, it will make, it will be great.
So inspiring. Okay, does the coffee cup come into your decision at all to get a free coffee mug?
Probably will.
I normally go for the $4 per cup. But yeah, knowing the details about the carbon footprint and of course the enticing free mug would likely draw me towards the $6 cup.
It depends on how the mug looks like.
Oh, I see.
If it's nice, then I don't mind going for this.
I see. So the free gifts is something that might persuade you to spend a bit more money.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Lo and behold, the free coffee mug with a minimum purchase garnered completely different responses.
So reward bundling really works.
Yes, in fact, that's what marketeers and many companies have been using for decades, right? To get their consumers to spend more or to spend in a certain direction.
So, as a consumer, how can I deal with something like hyperbolic discounting?
So now that you know this cognitive bias exists, you can be more mindful about it and to stop and think and question yourself when you're presented with different choices. So when you have 2 choices in the case of the coffee, you should stop and think on whether you could forego some of the immediate gratification, which is saving the $2, and to make a decision that would have better implications or better rewards down the line. So in this case, a better decision to save the world.
Picking up the baton from Joe and Samuel and staying on the topic of coffee, I'm going to find out how Nespresso uses reward bundling to urge their customers to recycle their coffee pods. The coffee company hosts lucky draws for customers who recycle their used coffee pods. So, what part does your customer recycling program play in the company's efforts?
In Singapore, we established our recycling network in 2014, and the intent is to be able to collect used capsules from coffee drinkers at home, in offices, and in hotels. We work with a local farm to donate these used coffee grounds so that they can use the nutrient-rich compost to grow vegetables from, whilst the aluminium is repurposed and made into everyday items like pens, coasters, and even bicycles.
We've also learned that Nespresso uses a reward bundling system in the form of your Recycle to Win program. Tell us more about that.
When you open the door, the courier asks you for your bag. So it's as simple as simply passing your used bag. The second thing that has impact is our lucky draw. Each bag of used capsule translates into a chance to win a Nespresso prize that's made from recycled items. We did see a big surge in participation after we implemented these 2 things. And what has been heartening is that the volume of bags being returned has actually maintained even during the periods when the lucky draw is not on.
Wow, that's very fascinating from a psychological perspective because they know you're no longer giving them the rewards, but they're still doing it because they formed the habit.
Yeah. And we hope that that habit means you don't have to think too hard about it and that it becomes so much more effortless and just part of your day-to-day life.
There. Joe will be happy to know I'm bringing home these recycling bags for our used coffee pods. I'll tell her the good news when we next meet to explore the next cognitive bias.
Remember the Buangkok sword incident in March 2022? A 37-year-old man was swinging a sword at passing cars. No one stepped in to stop him, for obvious reasons. But when he attacked a pedestrian who fought back, a big group of bystanders suddenly jumped in to help pin him down.
Oh, I remember this incident. Couldn't believe my eyes.
Yeah, but how was it that the other passers-by only stepped in after the first guy took action?
I think there's a psychological theory that could help to explain this. It's called the bystander effect. It's when we just stand by and watch while a critical situation is happening.
How does this relate to climate change, though?
So, more of us would take greener actions if we see that someone else is already doing it.
Right, interesting. So maybe we should go and find out how others influence our own cognitive biases.
I could go talk to Denise about this, the bystander effect. Good idea.
Right, well, I will go and find somebody who deals with this very same effect on a daily basis.
So Denise, could you please help explain to us what the bystander effect is?
Okay, so it comes down to three basic psychological processes. The first is diffusion of responsibility, so spreading the weight across. So if we are unsure what to do, we will wait for a cue from somebody else so we can go and assist maybe. The second is evaluation apprehension. We evaluate the situation cautiously because we don't want to look ignorant and we don't want to make ourselves look foolish by being the first to act. So for instance, purchasing an electric car is a big cost. So we want to wait for somebody else to make that first public step and then we can see if that's the thing to do. The third is the pluralistic ignorance. And so if we have to make sense of an ambiguous situation, a bystander effect can occur when we have to wait on the public reaction of others. And the problem is then if nobody perceives the situation as critical.
So how do we combat this cognitive bias?
By acting. So firstly, if we're the one to do any kind of act, it makes other people, I guess, think that it's okay to act as well. If we're all bystanders, nobody's going to do anything.
Huh. So how do we apply this to climate actions?
Okay, so if we translate actions to pro-environmental behaviours, if we're the ones who refuse to use single-use plastic, if we refuse to use carbon-emitting vehicles, or if we purchase an electric car, we're the one that people can see that's the cue that we're giving them. And so they take the cue to act rather than being a bystander.
So somebody has to take the lead. Why not?
Why not us?
Why not us?
It's not just individuals' green behaviour that gets influenced by the bystander effect. Businesses, which can make more impactful environmental changes, can also be affected. While Ed was talking to Denise, I came to Unravel Carbon, an organisation that helps companies track and reduce their carbon emissions.
So Mark, you work with a lot of companies in helping them to green their actions. So how do you feel the bystander effect kind of affects their decision-making?
We do see quite a lot that companies are quite risk-averse. So we see a lot of, in the area of climate change, companies don't really understand the concept, they don't really understand some of the solutions, but they know climate change is a problem that they have to deal with. So then, because of this risk aversion, there's sometimes a tendency to wait until something's like fully commercial, fully available before they deploy it. And so people don't seldom want to take that leap just in case it doesn't work.
I see. So how do we get somebody to take on that mantle, to be the first and kickstart everything?
I think there's a lot comes from having visibility of potential solutions. So having these programs and platforms out there that allow people to see what their emissions are, see what their emissions could be in the future, you know, have identified solutions that say, you know, you could do the following things and then talk with experts.
Right, and almost in that way, try to convince them that there is a benefit in appearing to be the first to act.
Correct. There's certainly ways to work on those purpose-driven companies and say, hey, here's some cool things, and you can be at the front.
Totally.
And you can take that first mover advantage and that branding advantage and all of these things that actually come with being a leader.
Okay, where's a good spot?
I think just here.
Okay. Besides the bystander effect, there's another behavioral theory that relates to our cognitive biases when it comes to climate change. Most of us experience this daily at school or at work. It's the fear of being left out or not being part of a group, and it's called the in-group, out-group bias. So can you please explain to us what's this in-group, out-group theory?
So as humans, we have this tendency to want to group things together. Right? So it's a normal cognitive process that we undergo. Right? So for in-group, it means that we psychologically identify with a group, and out-group is that we do not psychologically identify with that social group.
That makes sense. So when it comes to climate change, how do we use this theory to influence people to make greener decisions?
So for example, if you belong to a group of friends who are big on sustainability and also recycle a lot, you feel the peer pressure to recycle too. That's because you want to remain in the in-group.
Right, so like if I have a can, I wouldn't throw in the trash, I look for a recycling bin instead.
Yes, that's right. Especially in the presence of your friends.
To try and test this theory out, I have 7 participants who will tell us which of the 3 lines, A, B, or C, is the same length as line X, with line A being the correct answer. But what one of the participants doesn't know is that the other 6 are actors that I have planted. Our 6 actors will be going first and will all give the same wrong answer. Right, last but not least, let's see if our actual participant will trust his or her eyesight or bow to peer pressure. Why did you choose A?
It looks more correct to me.
But everyone else chose B. Do you feel influenced by them? Did you feel that it was a harder decision to choose A?
Yeah, I have to try to compare it again and again, but I guess I'll still stick with my guts.
Did you feel in any way influenced by them that maybe B?
I make my own decisions.
Ah. Everyone else chose C. Did that have any influence on your decision?
Not really.
When you have a strong belief in something, is it easy to change your mind about it?
I think it depends, but because this one I can see for myself.
Last but not least, it's very sure it's A. Okay, everyone else chose C. Why do you think it's A?
It looks closest to me to be the same length as X.
So once you have a very strong belief, you know that it's true, is it easy or hard to change your mind?
It will be very hard.
It will be very hard. C, okay. So now that you're a little closer to it and then you're comparing this, do you feel that C is still the correct answer?
No, I think it's A.
You think it's A instead? So why did you put it on C?
I guess because everyone picked the same answer, so get peer pressure.
Did you feel that I'll be wrong because everyone else is putting on C?
I won't feel wrong, but I just feel out of place, I guess.
Right. Would you describe that as a feeling that you often have?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. So that last guy was me, caving to peer pressure though he knew better. But most of the participants were made of sterner stuff and stuck to their guns. I was, frankly, surprised. You still chose the correct answer. Thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
So in this case, we can see how peer pressure worked or didn't work.
So what does this mean for us when it comes to climate change? Because it seems that peer pressure may not be enough to get people to change their minds if they already have very strongly held beliefs.
When we apply it to sustainability or climate change, right, sometimes you do not have to go with the in-group. The in-group could actually be doing something detrimental to the environment. You could be the only one recycling or the only one bringing your own bottles or bags to the supermarket or coffee shop. So you can be the out-group, so you could be in the minority in terms of climate action, but it doesn't mean that you got to bow to the peer pressure that is around you.
I guess how do we convince people not to take a straw if all the 10 people in front of them have already taken a straw?
But if you know that's the right decision, then stick to it, right? Like what we saw in most of our participants.
3, 2, 1,
While Ed was reliving his university days, I visited SP Group. This company has already been using tactics like peer pressure to try and get their customers to use less electricity and water.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Hey, I really like your name.
I like your name too.
Thank you. So I also really like some of the initiatives that SP Group has launched to make customers feel that they're being more sustainable or to encourage them to be more sustainable. Could you tell me about that?
Yeah, we started off with the SP app, a free app for our customers to look at their weekly, monthly or yearly electricity and water consumption. You will also be able to see your electricity consumption comparing with your neighbours.
And how else do you let SP Group customers feel that they're part of an in-group?
So a couple of months ago, we launched this new initiative called Green Goals. So today, within your own household, you will be able to see your electricity and water consumption, but we actually make it a little bit more fun. So you're now able to see district and nationwide consumption. Wow. Yeah, which is great, right? So everything that you do, every small bits that you have contributed will now tell you how much you're contributing towards your estate, how much you're contributing toward national level, which is also the SG 2030 Green Plan initiative that we are driving towards by cutting down 15% of your electricity consumption.
Oh, that's amazing. So every single individual can track how they feature in this SG Green Plan.
That's right.
So even though we didn't show you any real polar bears, we hope we've convinced you to care enough about them so that you change your behaviour.
Yep. The truth is, there are consequences for our less than green choices for the whole planet, and therefore, those faraway polar bears.
And even though we know our brains are biased, we also know there are ways to hack our thinking so we can make better choices for our environment. Whew.
I need another coffee.
Do you think that's a good decision for the environment?
Well, they recycle their pods.
Oh, yeah, okay, it's a good idea,
Yeah.
Hey, so do you think we've done enough to get the message out?
Maybe we should have shown more polar bears in the show, you know? Sitting on melting ice, all that.
No, that's not this show. This show is about how our brains work and how we can hack it, remember? It's about all the various cognitive biases that we have to think about. How do we overcome?